Alright, in this lecture we're going to go ahead and install Tails on our computer using VirtualBox. This is useful because you can actually boot up Tails on your normal desktop, in this case the Windows desktop environment, and you can get used to it and get a feel for it before you actually boot from a USB to the Tails operating system. It's important to note though that if you plan to do anything like on Darknet markets or just anything digging into the deep web a little bit, you don't really want to use it on a VirtualBox because it's not as secure as Tails would be on its own. It'll have a lot of security issues and a lot of things you don't want to mess with. So this is good for practicing and getting a feel for the environment, but for anything that your security should be taken seriously, I would not use Tails in a VirtualBox environment. But we'll go ahead and continue over to the desktop to take a look at the Tails with VirtualBox. So back on the desktop over here, we've opened up a web browser, just a normal Mozilla Firefox browser, and the first thing we want to do to actually get this is get VirtualBox. So we'll go ahead and just type that in here, and we'll just do a basic Google search, and you can do the first one, not the ad. If you want to do the ad, same thing, but we'll hit this one. It'll pull up the VirtualBox page, and then we will look at downloading it over here. And then we'll do a Windows host because we are on a Windows machine. Of course, if you are on a Mac, use the OS X, or Linux, use Linux. But we'll save the file. It'll take a minute to download, so we will skip to when it is done. Alright, so the download is just starting to finish now. So once it is downloaded, we will go ahead and run the file so we can actually get to install VirtualBox. So it should pull up with a normal screen like this, and you just click run. And of course, if you are on a Mac, it will look a tad different, and there are a lot of documentation on the Mac desktop using this. I use Windows just because Windows is more widely used. So just keep hitting next. We'll install all of these, pretty much everything you want with it. And there we go. And we'll go ahead and let it install. Should only take a moment, so we'll go ahead and let that happen, and we will be back once it is done. Alright, and it finished up here, so we'll go ahead and launch it right now. We'll hit finish and let it load up. It'll take a moment here. Alright, so that has finally finished and booted up. So here it is. Basically, this is the whole entire screen. Not much to it. We'll go through the setting up of Tails, but we do need one more thing, and that is actually getting Tails. So we open up a tab over here, and you can go to tails.boum.org, and that's where you will find the download for Tails. And you can just kind of hit this giant install Tails button. We just want to download only. We don't want to do this whole thing. So we will want to download using a torrent client if you have one. So we can go ahead and do that and download the torrent file. I use Deluge for my torrent software, one of the best ones I think. So if you have that, or you can download it without doing a torrent, although it will just take a lot longer. So we'll open this up in our torrent download system, and should only be a second till it pulls up. And here it is now. Go ahead and let it boot up. Duplicate torrent, I already had that. Alright, so now we got Tails added here, and it's going to go ahead and start downloading. It's a pretty large file, just over a gig, so depending on your internet speed, it may take a while to download. So go ahead and just give it its time and let it download. Alright, so that download finished here, so we'll go ahead and stop it to make sure that it doesn't keep seeding, so it doesn't use up my internet while we record this. And then we'll go ahead and hop back over to the VirtualBox. I'll actually double check where it saved. I believe it was just under my downloads. Let's see. Yeah, just right there. So we'll go ahead and go over to the VirtualBox. We'll start by clicking on the new, and then we'll name it. We can name it Tails. You want to set the type to be Linux, and then the version will be other Linux 32-bit. And the memory size you can allocate from your machine based off of what you have. So obviously 1,000 megabytes is 1 gigabyte of RAM. It's recommended you do at least 2. This computer only has about 4 on it, so it'll definitely be sucking it up. I'm going to do, I'll make it a nice even 2, just about. So we'll select that, and then on this part you don't want to have a virtual hard disk in this part, so click the do not add virtual hard disk and go ahead and click create. So it'll say it is done, but at this point it's not actually connected to anything, so we will want to add the CD. So we'll go to the settings, and once that loads up you'll go to system. And in the enhanced features area, you want to make sure that you enable the IO API-C. And then from the storage pane on the left hand side, select the empty controller right here, the controller IDE in the storage tree. So you'll then want to go ahead and select this CD icon, which will help you choose a virtual disk file. And you'll want to go to your tails and go and hit that, hit open, and make sure to select the live CD/DVD option, and we'll go and hit OK. And assuming everything was correct, we can go ahead and start this virtual box. It'll take a moment to boot up, but once it does, hopefully it has tails running. We will see if we did it correctly. So I'm going to pause right now while it boots up. It'll take a moment and we'll be back when it's up. Okay, and it looks like it did start here. It'll come up in a separate window, and it looks like this is the actual Tails operating system. So there's 2 options at the start there. Just select the normal Tails, and we just want to get it booted up to verify that it is all working correctly. But we'll go through the normal startup process in the next one here. There may be some errors as it boots up just because you are running it on a virtual box. You can ignore most of those. None of those are really going to be critical to running the system. So let's see here while it loads. Hopefully it all is done correctly. And while this is loading, I'm just going to go ahead and close out some of the programs I have left open just to help give it some more memory here to work with. This open, and we will just wait while it loads up. Alright, so it is finally booted up here, and now we can expand the screen and take a look at our options. At this point, we know Tails has been installed correctly and is working, so there's not much we need to do. In the next section, we'll go through the installation process on a USB, and then after that, we'll get hands-on with this Tails desktop, and I'll show you the ropes on what you need to use and the differences in the software and installation and using Tor and all of that. So head to the next section if you want to learn more about installing Tails on a USB drive.